All right. Well, good evening. Hopefully, you are enjoying the cold. I am not. I have determined that I do not like the cold. Um, maybe it's something with age. I don't really know, but or maybe it's just I've been out of the north for so long that now I'm like I just absolutely hate the cold. I don't know. The only thing good about the cold is the bugs die. I think that's the good part. Mosquitoes are not active, but it's too cold to be outside, so it's kind of like I don't know. Anyway, glad that you're here tonight. We're gonna. What's that? Fire. Oh yeah. It's firewood. It's fire pit wood. But they got a burn ban on. We can't even enjoy a fire pit right now. Anyway, but somehow the burn ban doesn't apply to all those construction guys that are burning stuff. I don't know how that works. But yeah, what to your neighbors? Oh, there you go. Why not? Boom. No gradual build up or anything like that. Oh my goodness. All right, James chapter 5, verses 1 through 6 is where we're going to be tonight. We don't have that many. We have two more lessons in the book of James, maybe one. I can't remember off the top of my head, but maybe one or two. But James chapter 5, 1 through 6 is where we're going to be tonight. And kind of an interesting passage of Scripture. It's one that's actually pretty widely abused as well because there's a lot of misinterpretations as to what James is actually talking about when he gives these. Even in my Bible, it comes with those little headers on it, and this one it says warnings to the rich. And that's not really what he's talking about, but it's one of those things that depending on your background, your socioeconomic situation, your nationality, the poverty level, just all those things come into play when we talk about this. And we're gonna try and bring all that out tonight as we talk about this. But James chapter 5, 1 through 6, and let's go ahead and we'll open up with prayer. Father God, we do thank you that we can come together, we can have this time of study of your word, and I pray that as we open it together, that we would have freedom of discussion and conversation to better understand the things that you have written for us to know. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, so as we read this passage, I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview and then kind of get into the details of it. But when you really get into it, James is not warning against rich people. That's not really what he's doing here. He's warning against, specifically, and this is very specific, he's warning against believers who are perpetrating injustice by taking advantage of the treatment of their employees. That's real. And so if I was preaching this on a Sunday morning, that's what I'm talking about. Are we guilty of doing this? Even in our culture, we have opportunities to take advantage. You say, well, I don't do, well, good. But that's the whole idea, is that Christians taking advantage of their employees or people that are working for them and doing so unjustly. And what they were doing, and we'll see this in the passage, they were actually enriching themselves off of taking advantage of the labor of others. So they were doing something. They were basically, if we want to come down to it in the way of thinking that we would call it today, we would say that they were defrauding them their wages. They weren't paying them as they should have, and they were getting wealthy because they were basically using them to enrich themselves. So this is really the idea, and I know we don't use this term today because it generally is used when we talk about interest, but the word usury comes up when you're abusing people. Well, that could be interest rates. That could be not paying them what their value is. That could be a lot of different ways. But when you're using someone to your own financial advantage, and that's really what he's talking about. They wanted to get wealthy, and they wanted to do whatever it took to get wealthy, to gain that material. And even if they had to commit fraud to do it, they are more than happy to do whatever it took to gain that wealth. And again, the reason why I'm bringing out this mentality is because this is the mentality today. The mentality today is still the same. I will do whatever it takes to gain the wealth. And even if that means I have to defraud people, even if that means, going to corporate America, even if that means I have to cut the corners, not do things quite right, because that's how I make my money. And James is warning against those types of things. And he's going to remind them, hey, you can get away with these things while you're here on earth, but there is a God who you'll be accountable to. And so he's going to bring that back. So let's get into this. James chapter 5 and verse 1. He starts out, "Come now, you rich, weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you." And so there's that warning, and I put it in quotation marks, to the rich. Because the point isn't about how much money they have. if I were rich in a third world country, my standard of living would be different than if I was in America, because it's not about how much money I have. The emphasis here is going to be on oppression. It's going to be on taking advantage of people. Because really, if you look at it, there's no qualifier to the word rich, is there? How much is rich? Well, it depends, right? It depends on who we're talking about, right? I mean, it was only a few years ago that Bernie Sanders was talking about the millionaires and the billionaires, and now he only talks about billionaires because he's a millionaire. So, it's relative, it's relative in speaking. And so, if one person might be rich in some context, but then in other contexts, they don't really have that. If you were going to a third world country, everybody in America is rich compared to like if you were going to Somalia or some place like that. Everyone is rich. But if you're here in America and they say, I was looking at the stats the other day, they say for a family of 4, you got to make over like $75,000 before government programming and all that kind of welfare stuff doesn't have any advantage to you anymore. And you're just like, $75,000, that's a lot of money. Yeah, that's the point. It's like it's all kind of relative when you get down to it. Because it's not about how much you have. The question is, what did you do to get it? And what are you doing to keep it? That's really the questions that James is asking here. So he uses 2 words. He uses the word weep, which is akaleo, talking about disaster, weeping in response to disaster. And then howl. And the word howl is what we would call an onomatopoeia. You guys remember onomatopoeias when you were in English? It's a word that kind of sounds like it like bee, like buzz and things like that. So that's this word here. It's howl. It's howl in response to sudden and unexpected events. James's point is this. These tragedies haven't happened yet, but they will happen. Because of how they're getting their wealth, because of how they're taking advantage of people. They're not blessing others with how they've been blessed. They're hoarding it to spend on their own luxurious living. And so he goes to verse 2, he says, your riches have rotted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and your silver have corroded, and their corrosion will be evidence against you and will eat your flesh like fire. You have laid up treasure in the last days. That's a very key line there. You have laid up treasure in the last days. And I'm going to be very careful here. He's talking about the worthlessness of material possessions, and get this next part, don't miss this part, in light of eternity. Okay? There is an importance, and we talked about this a little bit last week. There is a balance here, and I want to be very clear about that. There is a balance here about the wisdom of planning for the future. Okay? That's important. But there's also the balance of the fragility of life, and that you can save and you can put away all kinds of cash in retirement, and you never get there. But if you do get there, you're going to be glad that you did put away the money and make sure that you made the wise plans and things like that. So there is a balance, because our trust isn't to be in material possessions. Our trust is to be in God. We know that God is the one who provides these things for us. God gives us what we have, and so we should be thankful for that. Everything in this life will fade eventually. If you haven't realized that already, it's going to happen. And we have to be sure that we're looking forward to eternity with Christ. Material possessions will not last. He says riches have rotted. It's almost like an expectation there, right? It's going to happen. Gold and silver, they tarnish. And I was looking at gold prices the other day. They have over $4,000 an ounce now. And you know what that means? That means that's how much less your dollar's worth. That's all that means. That means you got robbed, and the federal government has robbed you. I know this is on the internet, but whatever. It's true. Silver is like almost $50 an ounce, something like that. That just means your money's worth less. That's what it means, because riches have rotted. What I have in my bank account is worth less today than what it was last year. That sounds crazy, but it's just the truth of it. Even property can lose value. I was reading an article today about the states and cities that they are saying next year is projected to lose somewhere between 20 to 40% of their land values. That's crazy. But the reason why is because it was overbought and overbuilt a few years ago. And so because of that, and everybody was moving to certain areas, and because of that, property values are now going to go down. And it's kind of crazy. So how do you view this? Riches have rotted. Let's talk about this for just a moment. What is, in your mind, when you think about that, What does James mean? Riches have rotted. Okay, it's just not worth as much. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. They used to say it this way: you can't hold on to money no matter how hard you try. Somebody's always trying to get it out of your pocket to put it in theirs. Yeah. Ben. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And even things like Bitcoin. You read how they're robbing people that have Bitcoin now, and you're just like, how can you rob someone that's got Bitcoin? Well, they'll beat it out of you, literally. Like they're kidnapping them and beating them until they give them passwords to steal their Bitcoin. And guess what happens when you steal Bitcoin? It's gone. You ain't never getting that back. That's gone. So it's crazy, and it just emphasizes the fleetingness of it all. Anybody else on that thought? Riches have rotted. Yeah. Yeah, I heard somebody say it, because it says the love of money is the root of all evil, and the idea is not that money's corrupt, but that man corrupts money. Just like power is not bad, but man corrupts power. Yeah, it's the love. Yeah, it's man who is the problem. It's how we approach it. I was reading some stats on this. 16% of NFL players file for bankruptcy within 12 years of retirement. I mean, how many celebrities have you heard that they made millions? I mean, it wasn't like Mike Tyson, just broke, just absolutely broke. And you're just like, how can that be? You got so much money, and what are you doing with it? But if you really get down to it, no matter how fat your pension or 401k is or all that kind of stuff is, no matter how much money you have in the bank, most of us are just one situation away from losing it. It doesn't take much. It's a very tenuous situation. I've heard people talk about, we're talking about riches have rotted. People that have the most amount of wealth have the most amount of stress because they're constantly worried about losing it all and the effects that has. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or REMS or a catalytic converter. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. You get everybody gets there like they wait till tax season. Oh look, I got all this money back, and then did you do something good with it? Nah, I just blew it on a TV. Yeah, yeah. It's just what happens. Yeah. Yeah, and it's gone. It's gone. Yeah. And I think James's other point here in what he wrote is that greed should have no place for those that are living with an end times mentality. If we truly believe that Jesus is returning, there is no point to hoarding wealth. There is no point to being hoarders. And again, this is a call, and I want to be careful again. This is a call to balance. You want to plan for rainy days. You don't want to be foolish about this. This isn't a death cult where we're all going to sell everything we have and go live on top of a mountain. That's foolishness. No one's advocating for that. But it also means that I shouldn't hoard what I've been blessed with. If I've been blessed, I should be generous because God has blessed me. And I think this goes to the heart of what James is saying. My blessings, material blessings, should be used to bless others, not oppress them. I shouldn't use my wealth and my power to oppress others and keep them down. I should use that in turn to bless others. And it's a very important principle. And he gives 4 reasons why, for those who are using wealth to oppress others, for why should they weep? Why should they be upset about this? Well, because wealth is temporary and it's subject to the ravages of time. If there's anything inflation has taught us, is that in order to keep pace with inflation, you have to earn like 6%, something like that. It's like crazy. Free. Taxes. Yeah, taxes. One day a week. Yeah. Yeah, I just sent in my tax bill. I hate writing it. And that's why on the back of my iPad it says taxation is theft right there. So anyway, just how I think about it. Welcome to think differently. Wealth is temporary. It's subject to the ravages of time. It really is. It's subject to the ravages. The oppressors are guilty of sinning. If you're oppressing someone, especially a brother or sister in Christ, man, I wish Karen hadn't. I know she had something else to do, but she talks about a situation in the church she grew up in where a guy was employing people within the church, but then he wasn't paying them. He wasn't paying them their wages. And it split the church because you had people siding with, oh, well, he didn't do the work he was supposed to do. Oh, he's not paying them, and ended up splitting the church because he was actually using his position of a business owner to get labor out of people and then not pay them. It's kind of crazy. It is not a good witness at all. It did that same thing, or something similar. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, and think about the testimony that is about a professing Christian to have that kind of reputation. It's just, and obviously these are negative examples that we're talking about here, but there are some very good quality examples of Christian businessmen and people who have been blessed financially with wealth, and they use their wealth to bless others, and that's a wonderful thing, and we commend that. So I don't want to tarnish, hey, if you've got, and you're this type, that's not true at all. We know that because we know that there are people that are very generous and have used their wealth and the blessings God has given them to bless others, and that's the way it should be. James is warning against this. Yeah. Yeah. Just absolutely shot. Yeah. And then there's the warning here of God will judge those who misuse their blessings. When God blesses us, the whole point of Him blessing us is so we can bless others. That's really the whole idea, is I can take that and I can use that to further His ministry and to bless others. And oppressors will ultimately miss out on building treasures in heaven. And so those are the reasons there for those who are using their wealth to oppress others to eat. But he goes further. He says, behold, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud. So see, there you go. That's the emphasis here. They're using their position, an influence and power, and they say, hey, they did the work, but you didn't pay them for it. That's wrong. And it says they're crying out against you, and the cries of the harvesters had reached the ears of the Lord of hosts. You have lived on earth in luxury and self-indulgence. You have fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter. You have condemned and murdered the righteous person. He does not resist you. So there's an inventory of selfishness. James, I think he's moving into some very specific examples here. I think he's going from a more general principle to specific things that were happening in the church that were just really kind of disgusting when you get down to it. And again, you note here, it's really not about how much someone has. It's about living in luxury and self-indulgence because you defrauded somebody. You didn't do what you should have done, and using your and I was trying to think of modern examples of that, and I kind of think of things like and I hate to use these type of specifics, but it's just the ones came to mind. Things like Enron, when these guys were enriching themselves and they got yachts and just filthy amounts of money. And then you find out they're just ripping everybody off. And, that's the types of things that we're talking about here. They're just fraudsters. And they were completely just taking advantage of the situation. Not paying their employees. I have experienced that myself. It is not fun when you're working from somebody and you have a contract with them for X amount of dollars, and then they all of a sudden they turn into Darth Vader and they say, pray I don't alter the deal further, and they just take advantage of you and take the money that you've earned. And that's what was happening here. They weren't paying for their work. They had done the work, but instead of paying him what they owed, the rich person had found reasons why they didn't have to pay him. And maybe you've experienced that and hopefully you don't do that. But even as something as, I was trying to make this as practical as possible, even when it comes down to like service industry, we got to be careful. We instead of looking for reasons why I don't have to tip somebody, I know tipping culture has gotten out of hand, so I don't like getting the iPad slid across the table for when it says 40% on it. That feels kind of bad. When you didn't even wait on me, I don't like that. But instead of looking for reasons why not to tip someone or why not to take care of someone financially, we should be doing just the opposite of that. We should be able to be generous with that. Instead of making up reasons why I won't pay or trying to get out of paying for something. I'm trying to get that free lunch. Yeah. I kind of it does say, and if you've worked in the service industry, you know, but it's one of those things. They were using fraudulent tactics to enrich themselves, and this was really their scam. They would have people do the work, say I'll pay you on Friday, and then Friday rolls around, and where's my pay? Well, you didn't do this right. So I'm gonna have to charge you back for that. And you didn't do this, and you didn't do this. And so finding reasons why not to pay them, and then using that to increase your net worth. That's just it's horrible, but it is what was happening, and it's something I think that happens again. And then they were using their net wealth to live in that luxurious and self-indulgence. But again, if you notice, those terms are even kind of what do you want to call it? They're kind of subjective. What is self-indulgence? Well, anything can really be self-indulgent. What is luxurious? Well, a lot of things are luxurious. I have heat in my car, and some would say that's a luxury. Those things are subjective. But I look at it and saying it's having more, especially in our culture, having more than what's enough. The term I use, and I know this is going to sound kind of weird to say, but I don't know. I don't have another way. It's like stupid money. Have you ever met somebody with stupid money? And they use it like it's stupid money. Like they have so much money that it's just like they don't just buy a car. They're buying a Bentley and a Rolls, and then they're buying their G6 on top of it. And it's kind of like just ridiculous amount. And you're just like, what are we doing here? Just gross overindulgence. And when you go into the first century world, you have to realize there was no middle class. If you're a middle class person, did not exist in the ancient world. You either had people who were at poverty level trying to figure out where my next meal comes from, or you had people that had need for nothing and were living in the laps of absolute self-indulgence. And there was nothing in the middle. And that's what's very hard for us in reconciling this passage to where we live, is because a lot of ways, Americans are overindulgent and self-indulgent and all of that. But this isn't saying take a vow of poverty. That's not what he's saying here. What he's saying is, how are you using what you've been blessed with? One of the things that is one of the proudest things I can say about being an American still to this day is Americans as a country are one of the most generous countries when it comes to giving aid. We can all debate about how the aid is used and where it goes, but when there's a tragedy, when something happens in our world, Americans are the first one to bust open the pocketbooks and start giving to it. Whether it be floods in North Carolina or hurricanes or whatever it be, even our church, when the hurricane happened, Samaritan's Purse came in, gave hundreds of thousands of dollars to get the things to operation, and that all comes from the generosity of God's people and the culture that we've created of generosity, and you don't see that in other cultures around the world. So that's something I think that is very important that we remember what we're doing here. Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought about Brody. At the time, our Lord's talking about how they made the commandment unfit because they can't help their elderly parents because they had set that money
Yes.
aside as Corban,
Yeah.
which they could use it for anything they wanted to.
Yeah.
But it was fraud.
It's just
It was
fraud.
at the
Yeah.
expense of their parents.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just simple fraud, and again that's what James is really going after here. People with that mentality, and unfortunately we do see that in our world. God is he reminds them also God is aware of what's going on. You may be able to get away with it. You may have the lawyers that can get you off, and you may be able to get away with it now. But God is aware of what you're doing. It is not gone unnoticed. Just as Abel's blood cried from the ground, so do the behaviors of those who are perpetrating injustices. I do believe that. James uses the title for God here. He says, and he uses a very specific title, Lord of Hosts, Yahweh Sabaoth. Do you guys know what that means? Yahweh Sabaoth. We sing it. There's a song we sing on Sunday mornings all the time that has this in there. He is the God of angel armies. So this is a threat. That's what James is doing. This is an absolute threat from a preacher saying, you're trying to pull it over on the God of angel armies. I'd watch what you're doing. He is not going unnoticed. I'm going to remind you that God is the God of angel armies. He is Yahweh Sabaoth, and he can make war against the fraudsters. So you think you're secure because you've defrauded all these people and you're living in a lap of luxury. Well, just watch it, because destruction and ruin come quickly. God is aware of what they're doing. And they are actually in this profiting off of the deaths of others. I go back, and just to point this out to you in case you missed it, you have condemned and murdered the righteous person. You have fattened your heart in a day of slaughter. And I hate to be this specific, but it does come to mind. Likely this is through starvation, literally starving people to death because poverty was such a thing. Food security was not something we talked about. The victims that were experiencing this, there was nothing for them to do. There was nowhere for them to appeal. And I had to kind of think about what are we talking about here when we talk about profiting off the death. And I thought about the oligarchs in Ukraine that are just making millions. And if you don't know this, just do some quick research. Making millions and millions of dollars off of programs that are coming into Ukraine, while snatching people off the streets and sending them to die on the battlefields. And you got it on the other side too. Russia's doing the exact same thing. Putin is, they say, one of the richest men in the world, and again, enriching themselves off of the backs of others and sending people to die on the battlefield. These are people that are profiting off the death of others. There might even be people in our own government that would fall into that category. It's like a nonprofit who collects money for a victim. Some tragedy, something happens, and there's a collection, GoFundMe or whatever set up for them. And then, there's a lot of administrative costs, and they keep most of the money that was raised rather than giving it to the one who it was raised for. So profiting off of the tragedies of others. Yeah.
Is this an extension of 4:2 where it talks, this is the same time it's talking about killing?
Mm-hmm.
Because it says there that you want, you want what you don't have, so you scheme and kill to get it. You think
Yeah.
that
Oh, yeah, because
idea there?
I'd have to go back in my time frame, but I'm pretty sure at this time frame either a famine was happening or they were about to go into a famine. I am fairly certain because that's why the collection was taken up for Jerusalem. So the whole idea of, and looking at it from the flip position, which one of us wouldn't do the same thing? If we had the ability to secure our family and our position because a famine's coming, or we're in a famine, well, stinks for you. I'm taking care of my own. We're looking at it from the side of the poor and the people being oppressed, but if you flip that other side, we all could be right there doing the exact same thing if we're not careful, and that's kind of that is the point, yeah. So their schemes are leading to the death of others. Like I said, likely this is starvation. They're just exploiting them, using them, and then killing them by their actions, working them to death and providing them no way of living. So James is very much condemning this attitude. So hopefully that makes it clear there about what James is talking about. This isn't saying woe to those who have 401ks or woe to those who are driving nice cars or whatever it is. This is about the oppression. This is about taking advantage. This is about usury. When we're using other people to profit and not doing things in righteousness. So, any thoughts? That's James chapter 5 verses 1 through 6. Any questions or thoughts you guys have? Oh yeah, it's a direct violation of love others. It's a direct violation. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, and I really do look at this passage, Brad, as saying, what is the point of being blessed? The point of being blessed is to bless others, not to live in luxury and overindulgence. I should look for ways to bless others. I had a guy tell me one time, and I've kind of held on to it because it made a lot of sense to me. It's not Bible, but it made a lot of sense to me. I can't do for everybody. I don't have that kind of means. Um, and if I had that kind of means, uh, would it even be, what could you even do with that? You know, like even if you were Elon Musk and you said, well, I'm giving away my billions, to who, for what, there's abuse and all that kind of stuff you talk about. But what I can do for one, what I would like to do for all. And I thought that made a lot of sense. So like I can't do for all, but I can do for one what I'd like to do for all. I can take care of the one, and I can meet a need there. And that's kind of stuck with me, and kind of how I try to operate in saying I can't support every missionary in the world, but I can support one. And that's kind of how I think it, using the ways that you're blessed to bless others.
It reminds me of the old example you probably use yourself in sermons. Starfish were washing up on the beach and they were going to die. Just with little boys back there throwing them all in. This guy said, "Son, that ain't going to make any difference." He said, "Well, it makes a difference to this one."
That's it. Yeah, same type of mentality. Yeah, makes a difference to this one. Yeah, it's like I'd like to rescue them all. I'm not going to be able to, but I can rescue this one. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, there's a balance. It is. Hmm. Yeah, it's true. Way out of balance. And what's funny about Luther? Um, some of the most greedy, stingy people I know have been some of the poorest, and some of the most generous people I know have been the most wealthy. And yet, it also reverses. There are tons of wealthy people that are stingy, and then there are poor people that are generous. And that's why I kind of taught the lesson the way I did, because it's not really about the amount that you have. It's about a heart attitude about what am I doing with it? What's the attitude I bring? Um, yeah. Any other thoughts or questions?
Well, too, there's a lot of other ways besides just money.
Yes.
Your talents, your
Sure.
gifts that you have. You could go help somebody at their home,
Oh yeah.
or
We had a widow that had a need just a few weeks ago.
there's a lot of things you can do.
There was a person in our church that had a need, and there was people that could fix it, and so they went and they fixed it. There are. It's not just, like I said, it's not just my bank account. There's other pieces to this. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about a couple questions. I did promise Karen that I would let you go early tonight because of something about choir or something. I don't know, something about that. I don't know. So. But how might James's warning to the rich apply to people in our society today? And we've talked about this a little bit, but just kind of, give me some more thoughts about that. Excuse me? Well, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. To go to that point, I encountered this when I was at another church. Truly rich people, I mean, people that have ridiculous amounts of money, they don't get paid like you and I with a paycheck on Friday or twice a month. That's not how they get paid. Because and the reason why I bring that up is I had one of the leaders of the church really upset because I said, this person we know is very wealthy, but they don't tithe. And I said, well, they don't make anything during the year. And they looked at me like that was the strangest thing they'd ever heard. It was like they get paid when the dividends come in. And then when that building needed a new roof, they put a new roof on that building. They don't get paid the same way you and I get paid. That's not the way it works. And so there is some, quick to judge and to look at things in a certain way and not see a bigger picture.
Well, I think, uh, the warning to the rich today is, there's, there, I mean, just an example,
Yeah.
eggs went way up and they came down, but there's a lot of stuff because, a lot of it was also due to the gasoline. But, the point I guess I'm trying to make is, like gasoline, everything went up, all these things went up, and the gas came down, but there is a lot of companies
I ain't
that
lowered it.
are still, they said, oh, shoot, we can sell this for this amount of
Yeah.
money, so we're going to continue to sell it.
Yeah.
People could afford it for that. They're going to afford it for, they're going to, whether these circumstances have changed.
No.
Yeah, and we see that when
And it's a
we
legitimate
see that
choice
with
that
the
they're
big
making.
grocery
Yeah.
stores.
Yeah. It's a legitimate corporate decision they're making to say, I will charge more than
I
yeah.
got $5, when I used to sell it for two, I'm going to keep
Yeah.
getting $5.
The funny one to me is now the fuel that they back when fuel shot up one of the years, I don't remember which one it was. I think it was like 2018. You started to see fuel surcharges putting on everything. That ain't never gone away. I'm like, gas ain't $4 anymore. Why are you still charging me this? But yeah,
And
yeah.
to me, the warning is, like there's things that I just don't even buy no more because of that.
Okay.
I won't buy that product, because I know that they can make that they're making that product, cheaper than they ever have, and yet they haven't dropped their prices. So,
Okay.
eventually they're gonna, and I think you see that. I'll just, well, there's even like big wholesale stores that are having to close their stores
Yeah.
to continue to make profit because they continue to try to make profit,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they think now closing stores is the way to do it.
Yeah. And I mean, and even we'll go a step further, even into our own government. There was a website that was totally dedicated to following Nancy Pelosi's stock movements
Oh yeah.
because you could enrich yourself off of it. It was just proven that she would outperform the stock market by like 300%, something crazy like that. And it's like, how does that happen? Well, it's just exploitation. That's all it is. It's just. And she's not the only one who's doing it, by the way. There's Republicans and Democrats both. That's how they go into politics, making $40,000 a year. Then they start making 100 and some odd thousand dollars a senator, and they come out millionaires somehow. It's crazy. I don't know how it happens. Um, what are some modern examples of exploiting workers? Everybody's like, nobody wants to say.
Well, I mean, in your tips, you mentioned
Okay,
tips.
tips coming.
I mean, I've had some of my kids, myself included. We always all worked in the restaurant business at one time, and I believe everybody should at one
Oh, yeah.
time or another because it's not easy work
It
and
is
few
not.
customers that are good. So, I mean, I think that the waiters and waitresses are definitely a lot of times, not always, but they do get exploited.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really hurts us because, like, working at my place, we make $8 an hour. We only work for 5 hours a day, sometimes 6. We only make $45 that night, and most of our money comes from tips. And then you go to Starbucks, you're only making $16 an hour start pay, and then they're like, "Can I have a tip? Can I have a tip?" And then it's like sometimes they don't even offer you a no tip option, and we're hurting because people are being exploiting the system. And I'm like, I'm making a third of the money that I used to make when I first started working here.
Mm,
Hmm.
yeah. It's a great example. Any others?
People that work with contracts,
Okay. Yeah.
that all the
Oh,
time. I mean,
me
we
too.
have to do a lot. Sometimes you do a lot of free
Okay.
we, you know,
Lot of a lot of hours go unpaid, shall we say?
right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, they do a lot for the children of America. They need to be paid. They are, you know,
Our priorities
right,
are backwards.
yeah.
right.
I think that's part of it. What you guys are saying. It's a priority thing. Yeah, and that's just exploitation. That's all it is. Just exploitation.
Honestly, truthfully, teachers spend a lot of their own money to buy supplies and stuff for their classroom. How many people spend hundreds of dollars for one ticket for one ball game?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think if we, I think
Not
if
this
we,
guy.
well,
Well, I think.
I couldn't give you a figure because I haven't been to a
I mean,
ball game in
and
30 years.
here's the balance in this thing, because again, these things are balanced. At the risk of sounding like a socialist, the capitalism is probably the best form of economics that the world has ever seen. The problem with capitalism is unbridled capitalism leads to nothing but greed and exploitation. And so there has to be the guardrails set up. And that's when people start talking about, oh, you're a socialist and all this. Well, the problem is unfettered corporate greed turns into completely destroying the environment, exploiting the workers. And we've seen that happen throughout history, even in the coal mines of West Virginia, where you had to buy everything from the company store. And so there was definitely exploitation going on. And so this is the balance of these matters. And it comes all the way down from the macroeconomics down to the microeconomics of even in our lives. We have to make sure that we are dealing with one another fairly and equitably.
I know that when I was in, I took some college classes, and one of them was economics. The instructor, um, I don't think he had a clue about what economics really was. Um, and some of us, well, half the class I was in was older than he was. Um, we just shook our heads and kind of rolled our eyes and said he hasn't got a clue.
It doesn't
And
understand.
I think that's
I think
really
most people,
wrong.
yeah, most people don't know how it works.
I think that's
Yeah,
wrong.
no, most people
Wrong.
don't.
People don't understand really how economics
Yeah,
works.
when you were in school, how many? Just raise a hands. When you were in school, how many of you took government economics? Okay, so some of you did, some of you didn't. Okay, just curious on how many people took government economics. Okay.
Hey, I will say, sorry I came in late.
No, no, welcome. No, no.
The beauty of our system is if you don't like your circumstances, you can find
You do have the ability. Yeah, there is ability to move and to change. That is true.
you know, if you think about a true socialist society,
There's no ability
you
to do
don't
that.
have
Right.
options.
Yeah, there's no ability to do
And
that.
everyone is exploited.
Yeah, when I saw that firsthand when I did some mission work in Cuba, some of the guys that we were doing on mission work with, the native Cubans, worked at it sounds silly, but they worked at a toothbrush factory. If you didn't know they had toothbrush factories, well, they do. But they only worked like 2 or 3 days a week because they made their quota and then there was no more work. But they can't get another job because they're not allowed to. And so they sit there making their $15 a month, and that's it. So, yeah. It's kind of strange when we think of it, but it was just yeah. Yeah, it's all about color, yeah. Um, all right, so we'll deal with this last one, and I'll let you, for those of you who go to choir, I'll let you go to choir. How can we cultivate generosity and humility in a culture that often values wealth and status?
Opening the door for somebody that's older,
Okay,
go to the grocery store.
sure. Very simple, but very doable, very easy.
Something simple. That's what we need. Going back to the basics.
Mm-hmm.
Slow down.
Slow down. Okay,
Slow down and listen to people.
okay, it's good. How can we cultivate generosity and humility in a culture that often values wealth and status?
I like what he said too, on the listen part. I mean, truly listen. There's so many times that even in my family, somebody's trying to get their point across,
I know, I listen to the talking head shows, and that's all they do is yell at each other all day. It's like, how do I get paid to do that? How do I get paid just to yell over people? I don't know how I do.
I've heard that some people are not waiting, or some people are not listening to you, they're waiting to talk.
Yeah. And that's just simple humility. Just saying, I want to hear what you have to say more than I want to hear myself talk. Yeah. That's good. Any other ideas? Cultivating generosity and humility in a culture that often values wealth and status.
You know, I mentioned this before, but I'll say it again. When we had hurricanes here, you know, our parking lot here was a drop site for water and things like that. And I can remember coming out here and just helping and stuff. And there was BMWs, there was Mercedes, there was Corvettes, it didn't matter, you know.
Didn't matter.
It did not matter. People needed water. It didn't matter what their status was, you know. And I thought that was pretty cool, you know. I thought that
That
was
should bring some humility. Yeah.
that's it.
Say, hey, we could all be there.
That's so inspiring that a lot of people that come into my work, they're a little poor, but they're really mean.
They're really mean.
And I found out it's honestly just because they don't get any attention or their needs met. And there's this one man that comes in all the time. He's so mean. And I just remembered his name for his words. And he just burst out in tears. And he's like, that actually meant a lot to me. Thank you for that.
Just an unexpected word of encouragement. Yeah. It's simple. Goes so far.
Both ways,
Yeah.
because if the customer lets the server know that they're appreciated.
Oh yeah. No, it does go both. It does go both ways. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully this kind of gives you a little bit of perspective. If there's something you can take away from tonight, it's however you've been blessed, with little or with much, use those blessings to bless others. Whether it's in your time, whether it's in serving someone, whether it's in a word of encouragement, whether it's monetarily. We've all been blessed in some way. We all have the ability to bless others. And this is a great time of year to do it. One of the things I was just told tonight, I didn't know this, but in the nursing home here in Viter, between the two nursing homes, something like that, there's like 80 people that don't have any family. They're just there and they're going to be by themselves during this. And that's a ministry opportunity. So we're going to talk about that. But I was just talking with Kelly about it tonight.
Yeah, Heather and I, we started it up, and
Yeah.
was trying to get all this stuff together. I was like, there's no way we're gonna be able to get that many things together. So
No, but again, we can do for some.
I said, I'll ask church and see what
Yeah,
they
but
are.
we can definitely do for some. And that's the point, is we can do for some. We'd love to meet everybody's, but we can at least do something there.
And
So
we're bringing it to them. We're
yeah.
not just like
Right.
dropping off.
So that's cultivating that generosity and humility. Using our blessings to bless others.
So I was writing like bless others with what you have, and that is by Theodore Roosevelt or something. It's like do what you can with what you have, with like your circumstance or whatever. And I guess that fits in the blessing others.
Yeah, it fits into blessing others. Yeah. All right, well, let's go ahead and we'll close in prayer. And I'm not going to take prayer requests tonight so you guys can get to choir because I was wanting to be done at 7:15 and I went a little bit over what I said I was going to do. So, Ben, would you close in prayer? And before I go, is there any pressing needs that you say, hey, I really need